Mr. as a rainbow today. Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. It's been a little while. The past month was incredibly difficult, so understandably I had to take a break, but I'm back feeling well enough to finally make more new content, so here we are. Welcome back. So I thought we would start things off with a cosplay story time, and this is one that happened during the summer, so it felt like a very appropriate time to talk about it. This was something that I was going to mention in one of my future funny secrets behind my cosplay photos videos. That was an awkward mouthful of words. This was something that I was going to mention in one of those videos, but I thought more about it and I thought this kind of just deserves to be its own video, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Naming this story, I want it to seem interesting. I want to rope you in, but I don't want to give anything really away about the story. Oh my gosh, I can't really tell you the kicker of this story because that would just kind of spoil the whole thing. But this is the story about how I went to a convention and it was kind of almost a disaster. I almost had a cosplay disaster. That's what we're going to say. Let's get into it. So this particular story took place, it was the summer of, I believe, 2014. This was during Anime Revolution that year, back when it was actually a fun and good convention to go to and not really badly run and kind of dangerous to attend like it is now. We don't talk about Anime Revolution in this house anymore. Not anymore. But back in 2014, when the story took place, it was still a fun convention to go to. So for that particular year, I was going to 2 days of the convention, and one of the cosplays that I was making for the weekend was my military Lapis cosplay. This was during my very intense Steven Universe phase. I was super into it. Lapis was like my absolute favorite character, and I had cosplayed her default version a bunch of times, and at that point, she didn't have any alternate outfits, so I decided to make my own because sometimes, like, you know, you cosplay a character and you really enjoy cosplaying them, but when you've cosplayed like one version of them a whole bunch, sometimes it gets a little like boring and you want to branch out a little bit. And if the character doesn't have any like canon alternate versions that you can cosplay, that's where original designs come in. So that's what I had decided to do. I decided to do this military Lapis cosplay. It was low-key inspired by like the whole Homestuck military trend that had happened back when Homestuck was a thing. I thought that that trend would work really well for Steven Universe, so I designed from scratch this military Lapis cosplay. I designed it from scratch, I made it from scratch, I put a lot of attention to detail and just a lot of work and a lot of passion into it, so it was kind of my big cosplay for the summer that I was really excited to debut. And like looking back, it's still a cosplay that I'm very proud of, aside from the fact that my body paint looked real bad because I was still using Schnazaroo paint and it was not good, but luckily we've come a long way since then. So I'm walking around with my friends and I eventually split off from them for a little bit, and a little bit of time goes by after I've split off from them and I start to feel nauseous. It was probably just because of anxiety. Like I probably was just kind of having an anxiety attack just from being overwhelmed. Back then, Anime Revolution was a huge convention. There were a whole bunch of people. I was in a cosplay that I'd put a lot of time and care and effort into, and body paint was still really stressful for me. I had cried part of my face paint off at the beginning of the day, and then I had to fix it, and I guess I was also like kind of a little shaken up from that because that's a little bit stressful, like having to redo your body paint. There's a lot happening. So I feel like at this point, I was probably just experiencing a lot of anxiety, and that was making me nauseous because that sometimes happens when I have really intense anxiety. I'll feel sick. But I didn't know at the time whether or not this was anxiety or if I was going to throw up. And side note, throwing up is like one of my biggest fears in life. I hate it so much, and I'm always, whenever I feel sick, I'm always like terrified of throwing up. And the last place you want to throw up is at a convention. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what my body's going to do. Like, is it going to be like a surprise barf? Am I going to have time to run to the bathroom? If I do actually have to barf, do I even have to barf in general? Like there was just a lot, right? And that of course adds to my anxiety. And I'm trying so hard to like keep myself centered, and I'm trying to do deep breathing, and I'm drinking water to try and calm myself down. So at this point, like I go outside and I find a little spot for me to sit, and I'm trying really hard to just like calm myself down. Side note, while I'm kind of having this panic attack, basically, Anime Revolution back then used to happen in this convention center that was right next to where the cruise ships would dock. So you'd have a whole bunch of tourists coming, and they would end up kind of mixing with all the cosplayers. They'd see the cosplayers and they'd start taking photos. But while some of them were absolutely lovely, a lot of them really liked taking photos just without permission, like as if you're just, you know, a sight there to see. I tried to find kind of a low traffic area where I could just sit and kind of calm myself down. While I'm doing that, there are these people walking by and just taking my picture while I'm kind of just looking distressed, which did not help. I did not enjoy that. And eventually I get a text from one of my friends and she's done doing whatever she was doing. So I tell her where I am and I tell her that I'm not feeling super great. I get this super panicked text from her being like, oh my gosh, are you okay? She eventually finds me and starts walking over. She looks very concerned. And I'm like trying to be a good sport. I'm like, I'm not feeling super great. I feel kind of sick, but I don't think I'm actually sick. You know, and I'm like smiling because I'm trying to put her at ease as well. So we decide to go and find a spot that we can sit together and kind of chill, take it easy, chat a little bit until I start feeling better. So we find this bench outside of the convention center. There are a bunch of people sitting around us. You know, we sit down and we kind of chill, and immediately, you know, I'm starting to feel a whole lot better. I'm chatting with her to try and kind of distract myself. She's a very calming person to have around. She has a very calming presence. So I think that really put me at ease, and I was able to figure out that, you know, this was just anxiety. I was not actually going to be sick, but it was still a very unpleasant experience nonetheless. So we're chilling and I'm telling her like, okay, I think I feel better. So I stand up and she kind of freezes. I'm completely oblivious to this and I'm, you know, I'm getting my stuff. And she kind of very awkwardly is like, oh, I think you have something on your shorts. And I'm like, oh, what is it? She's like, you kind of have like this white stuff on your shorts. So I'm thinking that's maybe like a piece of fluff or something, like something that I can just kind of dust off and like, you know, brush away. So I'm not really sure exactly, but I probably just kind of start, you know, brushing the back of my shorts. I'm like, okay, is it off now? And she's like, no, like it's really on there. Like she's trying so hard to be like polite about it. And I think she was a little nervous to tell me exactly what it was. She's like, oh, I think you're gonna have to actually like try and like pick it off rather than dust it off. And so I'm like, okay, like, is it here? And she's like, no. And you know, I'm starting quite high up on my shorts. I'm like, is it here? And she's like, no. And I get lower and she's like, okay. And she's kind of awkwardly like, no, a little bit to your right, a little bit to your left. She's awkwardly directing me where this mysterious white stuff is on my shorts. Turns out it's like right on my butt where I was sitting. So I had like sat in something. At this point, I still don't know what it is. And she's trying very hard to be like polite about it and I guess also not make me panic. And she doesn't want to help me with it because she would be touching my butt. At this stage, I'm still not super clear what it is. It's kind of like this rubbery kind of squishy stuff. You know, I can feel it now. And I very quickly realize that this is gum. Which, side note, whoever left gum on the bench, why? Who does that? Anyway, so I've come to the realization that I've sat in gum. And again, I've just had this anxiety attack and I'm trying so hard to kind of keep myself calm and be optimistic about it. But I also feel really awkward and kind of embarrassed because like, hello, I've just sat in gum while in cosplay. This is what anxiety is made of. Cosplayers everywhere, that's like the last thing you want to have happen. So my friend is still directing me, you know, wearing to pick it off. I'm picking off this gum and I'm thinking like, there's gonna be some remnant of this on my butt because like I'm picturing it kind of seeping into the fabric, right? You know, when you've sat in gum, right? Like, isn't it gonna seep into the fabric? So I'm thinking like, there's probably gonna be some sort of stain left. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get all this off, right? And I'm having all this in my head, but I'm also like overall just trying to keep myself calm because I don't want to have another anxiety attack, right? So she's directing me very awkwardly. I'm picking at my butt. Not to mention we are in public, right? I'm trying to be really discreet about it while there are, you know, con-goers and everybody around us, right? It's just a very awkward situation. So eventually, it took so much effort. Eventually my friend is like, okay, it looks like you've gotten all of it off. And we walk into the convention center. And when you walk into the convention center, there are these huge windows that you walk past in order to go into the door. So while we're walking past these windows, I'm using them as kind of a mirror because I'm trying to see if there's any stain left on my shorts. And thankfully, there was no remnant of this gum. Like, by some miracle, there was absolutely no remnant of this gum left on my shorts. They were very wrinkly though. So I do have photos of my military Lapis cosplay, and I have ones that were taken from the back. The butt of my shorts are heavily photoshopped because they were at this point really wrinkly because I had been picking gum off of them. I hope I can illustrate just how close we got to this being an absolute disaster of a day. Luckily, everything completely worked out in the end. I didn't end up throwing up. I ended up calming down from my anxiety. I ended up getting nice photos of this cosplay that I worked hard on. The gum came off. Everything was fine. But we were so close. We came so close that day to so many things just being disastrous. But luckily, it was not a disaster. So that is my story for you guys for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I did it. I'm a little out of practice since I did take a hiatus. I hope I did an okay job telling that story. Thank you guys so much for all of your patience and positivity. Really appreciate it. Please remember that self-care is incredibly important and your health always comes first, and it is okay to take breaks like I have just done. It is okay to take breaks, and I'm definitely going to be more liberal with my breaks from now on. I'm going to normalize that for myself because I think that's a really important thing to do. And it definitely did wonders for me. So yeah, that said, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I'll see you guys all next time. But until then, Panda Faces, please be sure to take care. Bye.